I've got 9:02, and I know Chuck is not joining us today. I think he's out of town. Doug just got back, so he's not going to be able to join us because he's got to catch up. But I don't know if anyone else is going to be joining us. It's a bit slim this morning.
Will Barbara be joining us?
No. I did not ask her to. But we can go ahead and get started. So the last time the Conservation Subdivision Group met, I think, was last Monday. I think most of us were there.
Yeah. I think Oksana wasn't, but I think were the rest of us? Oh, Karen, I don't think Karen was, but I think the rest of us were.
I was trying to find my notes from that meeting. So, I guess what the basis is that I think that group is getting closer. I shared with you guys the draft that Barbara shared with us. I think there's still a few more groups that probably need to review it and everything, and it hasn't, been referred out to the other groups yet. Oops, Pat's trying to join. But they've gone through a couple iterations. They started this right before COVID started, and then they took a break, much like all their other groups did, and then kind of got back to it last fall. Labella has given us a basic draft, and then Barbara has incorporated most of the comments that the members of the Conservation Subdivision team shared with her. I know for those of you that were at the meeting, we've heard the complaint, or at least, I don't know if it's a complaint really, but just kind of the obvious that the process isn't simple, but it might not be able to be simple. That's what we're trying to figure out. But she's trying to streamline it. They're trying to clarify the definitions. So if it isn't simple, at least it's clear. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at it, or whether you did or didn't. If you have any questions, and those of us who've been going through this can, see what we can do to answer it. But what I've seen, or what I've noticed, is that in this new draft version of our regulations, there seems to be a better focus on deciding what's worthy of conservation in the conservation subdivision, with a better clarification. And there's different tiers of land cover that get more attention than others. So there's requirements for percentages of the property that will need to be conserved based on what they are. It's some of the same things we've always had: slopes and streams, but also now woodlands, especially if they're in our open space plan as being, rare or more important. I think we removed the mention of historical or cultural items because I think we realized that probably doesn't really need to be in this part of the plan. I think also they mentioned that that's kind of covered already with some of our other reviews, like SHPO kind of takes care of those. And then there just seems like a better definition of all the terms, better explanation of the different types of land cover. So that's where, yes, it's maybe not simpler, but perhaps it's easier for a developer to come up with a plan that would meet the regulations. But I'm not sure I did a very good job of explaining it. But does anyone who was there add, or does anyone who hasn't been involved have any questions about it so far? Don't everyone jump in at once.
You must have explained it better than you thought, Sarah.
Yeah, you did. Well, I had, I've reviewed this, I don't know how many times, but I see something that we haven't really spoken a lot of, And that's ridge lines. And I know that ridge lines is kind of up in the air right now because the ordinance committee is reviewing that, but there is no mention of ridge lines specifically in this document. I don't know whether it needs to be, because we're going to be focusing on that really quickly. I mean, right now we're in that process. And even though we wouldn't be able to delineate, much about it, there we still do have a ridgeline guideline, which is a lot of that material is already contained in the new one, the new code that, or the draft code that the ordinance committee is looking at. So I'm just throwing that out because it concerned me since I read this over again and said, wait a minute, where's ridge lines? Okay, that's about all, but I think that remark I'll send to Barb too, and just see what she has to say about it. I don't know what the other committee members have to say about it.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in that meeting, right? Because Terry
But we talked.
mentioned the same thing, that it's hard because they haven't codified anything with ridge lines
Yeah.
yet, so it's hard to put it in these.
But we will be. I think we're on that track now, and so eliminating it might cause a problem down the road. I don't think we have to spell anything out because we already have a ridgeline code. We already have ridgeline guidelines that the planning board uses. So it's not something that we're not unfamiliar with and that we don't have. And we even have a map in our NRI, which is that shows ridgelines. So just thinking we might add something in there so we're covered in the future.
If ridgelines ever do become code, wouldn't that suffice on its own as part of code?
Well, all of this stuff here is in code. I mean, we're just quoting the maps of the NRI. That's all code.
Well, you know what I mean. Like right now they're guidelines, but if they become part of actual.
Well, so here's the problem with that, and I've always seen this: the guidelines are code. They're not. We can use them or we don't. That's at the discretion of the planning board. But guidelines are code. So they're already there. What's that?
I guess I mean, it's required. It
is required. Guidelines are required. It's the planning board that makes the decision whether they want to enforce it or not. So I guess what I'm saying is that we have a map, we have a code, and do we want to include some designation titled ridge lines in some way or form? Because I'm not sure which one of the versions, the draft versions that the ordinance committee is looking at, but there's a couple, but it's detailed, it has engineering with it, where our other quote guidelines, even though they are code, they don't give any engineering things, but they do give illustrations, what to, what not to, that kind of thing. So just my concern. Because we got a lot of ridge lines here in this town. Wouldn't want to leave that out as something that we wouldn't want to preserve.
So I have a note that maybe we need to try and figure out a way to include it. It's just hard to decide how to put it.
Yeah. And what category is that? A class 1, 2, or 3? That's the only place. I mean, that's really the only place where we have to make sure we've got it if we're going to put it in.
Right.
A question that I have is, okay, we get a developer comes in and shows you the map of the land they want to do the easement on. What do you see in terms of time? But when they meet all these, different regulations, are there forms that are already set, like a seeker type form where you check the box, or is this up to their own discretion?
Well, Tom, do you want to take that or?
Sarah nicely summarized the dilemma of simplifying this whole process. And Sal, I'll tell you, we've had a similar code in place for years. And the nightmare is getting the developer to sit down and go step by step and identify what's should be preserved and somehow create a hierarchy of what should be preserved and how many lots they get and what's included and not included. This is a better version of what we've got now, but it still depends on the developer to really sit down, do a survey of what's on the parcel and prioritize what's worth saving and how do you save it and how do you create a livable, attractive community. This is not a simple process, unfortunately.
The other thing that we talked about at the NRI training was the fact that when I'm talking about the NRI inventory, which actually spells out, okay, all of the natural resources that we're talking about preserving here, that a copy of that would be given to the developer as they come and, you know, are seeking information regarding conservation subdivision. So in that document, in the NRI, there's a lot of explanation about, you know, natural resources and about how to protect them and the reasons why we want to protect them. So this could set up, if the developer is interested, you know, to make sure that they understand why we want to do this. And then, of course, all of the application forms will help them. But the one thing I think is important is that this is starting at sketch, at sketch plan, and the applicant doesn't have to go into a lot of engineering, site engineering before this. So give them, you know, they have to do something here. They have to, you know, figure out what they want to do and stuff like that. It seems to me like, even though that's been in place, sketch plan for a long time, this gives it, you know, we're not going to do anything until you give us a good sketch plan. And then we'll talk about all the issues. So I think some developers will go with the scheme here and do it the way that satisfies everybody. And some developers just aren't there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that using the NRA would help now that we have it. We would just have
Well,
to.
I think that Michelle said that that's what she would do. You know, she would start giving copies to developers, and not only just to subdivision development, but also to individual lot developers who are going to be building on the, you know, steep slopes or the uplands or wherever, shoreline, because it's all, you know, important for people who are willing to develop at great expense, really, to know where the town is going.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead, Sal.
No, what you brought up the word expense. That's something that we talked about. You know, it's expensive for developers just to wait, just to pay for time. I don't know. I'm trying to grasp this whole process.
Gosh, I don't know of a development that we've had, a large development that isn't years in the process. So we're talking about major developments, and then we're talking about minor development here. So it just depends the timing, because of course with major developments, you've got so many aspects and issues that have to be covered. And you've got a larger seeker, but smaller developments, they can pass through pretty quickly, I think.
Well, and I guess that's one thing. So whether or not they choose to do the conservation subdivision, if they're putting in a neighborhood, some of those things are going to take a long time anyway. Some of the things are the same. If they choose conservation subdivision, they're going to get greater density. So, you know, they've got to do more for us, for the land. So I guess I mean, it just isn't simple. I see
Yeah.
you smiling, Tom.
Yeah.
There just isn't any
Yeah.
way around it.
And you know what? I don't think the town wants to really move too quickly on any major development like this. I mean, this development will be here for, tens of dozens and dozens of years. So we want to make sure that we know exactly what we're going to get in 5 or 10 years. Look at Lakewood Meadow. I mean, look how much time planning boards spent, trying to work with the developer through that. And, at the end of it, we'll say, oh gosh, how come we didn't do that? Or how come we did this? Or, there's always some improvements after it's been done. And that's just probably the nature of the beast. But I'm just talking about the time involved. It just takes time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I'm sorry, I can't remember everybody who was there or not. So if you've all heard this already, but one of the things as we get into the details, I forget the obvious is that we would prefer that developers use this rather than just go out and use the underlying zoning, because they'll eat up more undeveloped land if they use the underlying zoning than they would, if the houses are more clustered and we leave more open space around it. So it does go back to what you keep saying, Tom, is we have to make this desirable if it's going to do what we want it to do. It's one of our tools,
Yeah.
So, and it's like what you said too, Sal, but I guess I just keep thinking, well, hopefully they would see this as worth it, because it does make a nicer neighborhood, then, you've got a big rectangle and you fill it with homes with big lots rather than, homes in a smaller area with nice big fields or woods or what have you. So I do wonder, if everybody has this concern, is it too complicated? Are they going to avoid it? But they've been using it the way it is now, although this is going to make it more complicated or maybe a little bit harder, but I think the payoff will be better. I don't know. What is the general feeling? Do you think the way the draft is written, Tom or Sal, that it's going to deter them?
Oh, it won't deter them.
You think they'll still go for it, Joyce?
It depends on the developer. Listen, if they have options or buy the land, they know what they want to do there. It's, and of course,
Well, that's true. They already know what they want. They just have
they
to
already
figure
know
out how to get it.
they already know the process. It's not like we're the only community in the, in this area that doesn't have this process.
True.
There may be some, municipalities that might do it a little bit differently, but hey, all these we're talking about big projects now. They're all the same. They're not easy. They're not quick, and rightfully so, because the municipality has to determine what's in the best interest of the town, and and cooperating with the developer too.
And not only that, if you're in a desirable area, as the town of Canandaigua is, I can't imagine any intelligent person think it's going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, and that they have people that work for them that are capable of ferreting out the information they need to make a reasonable decision on how they approach things. I am the last one to say I know anything about code or development, but I understood the document. If I can understand it, they can understand it.
Good point.
Right. That's true. Reading through it, Karen, I mean, there are a lot of points that are just brought out. It's right there,
Right. And they're obvious points once you read it. They
Right.
might not be so obvious if you don't read it. So I really think it's something that is good to put in the hands of a developer, because then we get developments that we want and that we will see for many years to come. I mean, there are some developments that we don't want to see for years to come.
Sure.
I won't give you any examples, but there are some nearby.
Excuse me.
I mean, I really think that, I mean, it does create, like the examples Barbara was giving us, and one of the samples she gave was a lot that was kind of rectangular, and it had some farming activity on one side and and then some just undeveloped areas along the edge. And she gave two examples. One was they filled it with, somewhere between 2 and 4 acre lots, and it just used up the whole parcel, and the road went up the middle, and the houses were on either side. And the other example was the conservation subdivision, and the road went up the far side of the property, avoiding the farm fields and the woods on the right side of it, and they developed the homes kind of up along one side and up towards the back. And in that example, it was to show that farming can still be a part of a conservation subdivision. They left the farm fields available to a farmer who was currently leasing them. I think this was a hypothetical, but that was the idea anyway. And so I was kind of excited about that because, we often say that could be an idea, but I asked her, I said, well, how's it going to work? I don't see any farming happening in these undeveloped areas. I mean, not to say that that's the goal. Open, undeveloped land is the goal, but, I know a lot of people in our ag committee would like to see some of these that are planned on currently farmed land, leave that availability to our farmers. And so I think if done right, this can benefit all of our types of land cover that we want to save.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I think the draft is improved on what we have.
Yeah.
To give us the tool to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys say you think they wouldn't just do it the other way, because they're definitely going to get more houses if they use this than if they did it the other way.
I think there's a clear benefit to a developer to use the subdivision conservation design or conservation subdivision design. Yeah.
And it's what we want, and it's what our residents want. We hear it over and over again, preserve the rural character. And yes, that does allow houses, but if it's going to be developed anyway, over time, at least we get a say in what it looks like.
Absolutely.
Does anyone have any questions about the draft itself? Did anyone read it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, read it.
Good. You guys did your homework.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the wording or anything that isn't clear or is difficult to understand that I need to pass on to Labella?
Just to bring up a point for the members of the CIC that aren't on the conservation team, we did talk about the fact of in the very last pages, it talks about the conservation value. What am I talking about here? The conservation for permanent open space, the easement itself, who's the easement, who's going to hold the easement. And we've not had real good success in the town about that kind of clarity in those easement documents. And so this document also clarifies for not only the town or whoever's going to hold the easement, but for the developer, how they're going to have to perform so that this open space can actually be perpetuated with the development. So that I think was a really good insert, because that's been really a problem for planning board for a long time. What to do, how to do it, what's the town's responsibility, or is it the developer or the HOA? And so I think if we can get that in place, that's a real help for the future.
Right. That's one thing that did stand out. Who's going to assume the responsibility for all this and being able to sustain it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joy, Joyce, do you remember what they said? I actually have it up in front of me. If you guys want, I can share it. But that is it always going to be the HOA that manages that, or are they turning it over to the town to hold the easement? I can't remember.
Well, it'll
No, I
be,
think,
Good question.
I think it will be mainly the HOA, but I could see circumstances where the town might hold the easement or the Finger Lakes Land Trust might hold the easement. It just depends, I think, on what natural resources we're talking about and how much land we're talking about.
Yeah, I was just going to say size is probably the big
Uh-huh.
factor.
I mean, if there's an HOA, sure it will go to the HOA. That would be the most logical. But
Yeah, HOAs have certainly gotten acceptable and popular
yeah,
in today's building schemes. The only one that I can think of that doesn't have an HOA is that one on Bristol Road, where the town's going to enforce the easement, the one that's next to the hammocks. It's because
Yeah.
it's so
yeah,
small.
small.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But other than that, you're going to have an HOA that's going to have their funding and responsibility to maintain whatever is prescribed in the document.
And I think it spells out that they have to have a land management plan. We were talking about
Yep.
that at the meeting the other day.
yeah.
Mhm.
And there would be different, there could be different kinds of land management plans based on what is on the land, whether it's woods
Yeah.
or grasslands or farms or whatever. And Max Heitner, he's from the Finger Lakes Land Trust. He sits in our meetings, and he said he was going to share some examples. And I haven't talked to Barbara about it yet, but he did send a few things to her after the meeting. But yeah, it's basically like a
Contract.
yeah,
The
it's like
contract.
I mean, it's like you know how some people have like timber management plans and stuff. It spells out what are your goals over the years and how are you going to make sure that you meet them or maintain it, the way it is or whatever. So I thought that was a good part. I don't know if we've always done that, but I thought that was
I don't remember.
good.
Tom, do you remember ever having a management plan for the open space easements?
Just general,
Yeah.
whether it was going to be farmed or go fallow or whatever, but
Yeah.
nothing as specific as we're now contemplating.
Yeah.
But it's a deed restriction on that parcel, and it ideally spells out in perpetuity, and that seems to be a long time as to what can and can't be done.
And that's what it says in the draft. It says permanent conservation easement.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Which can
longer
mean a
than
lot
we're
of
going to
different
be
things,
around.
but so I get the feeling that you all guys are fairly comfortable with it, with a few things maybe.
mhm.
Maybe find a way to put in ridge lines a little bit more, or at least mention them. But overall, the CIC, or at least who's here anyway today, feels pretty good about it. All right.
And Barb would do the ridge lines.
So we have existing language for the ridge
Oh, we do.
lines, but it's not part. I mean,
The
the guidelines
guidelines.
are in there that are recommended, and the planning board can use them. But the ordinance committee is going to be looking at them to make it more. I don't know, what do you want to say? More strict, more stringent. Take it from guidelines to requirements, but
Mhm.
like Joyce has mentioned, it's difficult because it's just difficult. But Gary, when are you guys looking at that?
We're going to look
Remember?
at some of it on Monday,
Oh, okay.
7th. But you're right. I mean, it's as Joyce knows, she spent a lot of time on it. It's not an easy thing to get wrapped around and get it so it'll be beneficial all the way for developers as well as the town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've talked about that one probably about as much as we're going to. I did want to touch base about the comp plan. Um, I sent out an email to the original comprehensive plan project team,
Mhm.
and I didn't hear very much from them, but I did hear back from Ryan Stachok. He was on that group, and he left me a message and emailed me about um, trying to get that group together one more time. I mean, that actually is spelled out in the, um, I don't remember what they called it, but the original process that Eric and that group laid out for the, getting the comp plan through is that that group would meet a final time. With everything that happened and with Eric leaving, it kind of got pushed by the wayside, but Ryan had requested that we actually try and make that happen. I haven't heard anything from the other members, so I'm sure it'll be interesting trying to get them together again. But I mean, he has a point. It might be worth it to try and get that group to meet, but I think it would mean another delay. And what's this group's thought about that?
Well,
He
I think
also was,
some of us were on that committee, so I'm pretty well up to date. Karen's pretty well up to date. Somebody else I think on here was on that committee also, but don't remember who. But
I mean, it's a fairly long list of people, but they weren't all always active.
yeah, it's true. Kind of,
I didn't reply because I had gone through that document several
Yeah,
times, once
you
to
did.
do the proofreading and then once to read the content. And I didn't see anything glaring. It really needs to be read by everyone on the committee, especially the people that haven't attended all of the meetings, because I think things would stand out more to them than those of us that have gone over it and over it and over it.
Right, that's what I was hoping, but I only really heard back from, I mean, besides those of you who are
Well,
involved in
Ryan
other
was one
ways,
of those
but
people that didn't attend all the
right,
not all the meetings. So
yeah.
hearing back from him was good, and perhaps it would be fine for the group to get together one more time.
or
Yeah.
to poll the group to see if they even feel it's necessary. I mean, how many months has the CIC been involved with that?
Yeah.
And we've been members of the comp plan committee, so but anyway, that's just an area of thought.
The CIC went through it topic by topic, and we're a cross section of people who live in the town. So yeah, I see Joyce's too, but I still maybe one more time would satisfy the people who were not on the CIC committee and who did not attend all the meetings for the group.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan makes a good point. My only thought was no one else reached out who has not been involved. They didn't, raise their hand or say they didn't like it or they were uncomfortable. Because I sent them a draft and I invited comment and I haven't heard anything, but I would hate to have them feel like they were being ignored, but I don't know.
Did Ryan have any comments?
Not really. He had a few questions. I answered them and he was comfortable with it. Mostly he just wanted to know what had been changed. So I gave him I gave him kind of a summary, basically what you just mentioned, Karen. Each committee that has their own topic went through their own goal and streamlined it, condensed it, clarified it, added measurables where we had data, removed them where we didn't, that kind of stuff. So I kind of gave him the short version of our long process.
Yeah, it's been a very long process.
But I mean, he was comfortable with all that.
But I think it's been a thorough process. My feeling of the comp plan committee is that we did the work, the initial work, and we handed it off, and that's just like the ECB reviewed it, they handed it back. That's what all the reviewing committees are, the committees and boards that are involved in all of this review have done. And we are at the last there. I understand that it would be great for the comp plan committee just to get back together, but I don't know at this point if there were changes that were made, would we have to send it all the way back to all the committees again? I mean, I thought we were working on a final draft, and so there you go.
I
And you
don't
know,
think the
I
committees
do
would have more comment at this
I
point.
do agree with Joyce. If you didn't have any specific comments about it, it's kind of like beating a dead horse. And for crying out loud, you know, we've done this for a long time. It's going to, you know, a couple of years. It's time. And Joyce is right. Would it have to go through all the committees, all the rework again? Because I frankly don't want to edit again. I don't want
Well,
to
and I don't
read it
think
again.
they would have further comment. Each subcommittee saw it twice now.
So perhaps you could send out an email to the committee and one more and ask them and say to them, if there are no further comments from the committee,
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and submit it to the town board.
Yeah, I think that's
Good idea. Right.
yeah, that is. It gives them an opportunity, but there is a plan to move forward. Yeah.
Now, a follow-up question, which was from Ryan, that I kind of am also wondering about, because I didn't really think about this before, is what about a presentation of the plan at the public hearing or at a separate public meeting? It's not a suggestion, it's just kind of a question. We never
You
talked
mean who's
about
gonna?
that.
Who's going to give it?
Yeah, do we need one? It seems like it would be appropriate. And
I
at
would
what
imagine
point
that.
or where we would do it? Is it
I
at
imagine that would happen at the town board. That's
the
where
night that the public hearing is
The
held?
public hearing.
that would be the presentation, the time of the presentation. That's the way it's happened before with all of our policy manuals and whatever.
For some of them, we've done a separate meeting like before where it's longer, but because this would, if it's at a town board meeting, it would be fairly short. A few minutes, maybe 5 minutes or something.
I believe Doug could do this.
Yeah, I think so
I
too.
think so too.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we started from scratch.
Mhm.
You know, we made changes, additions, subtractions from the original comp plan, but I think just an overview would do it.
Mhm.
15 minutes at the very most.
Yeah, I agree. Doug's the guy to do it.
Gary, when there are public hearings, how many people actually show up?
Well, even before the
Other than
pandemic, there were
chickens.
very few, if any.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, the people that are involved have been involved and know what's going on, and the rest of the folks are happily complacent.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the thing about it is also it's gone through all the different committees, and so there's been
Right.
a lot of different people involved. And if
Yeah.
they've had any complaints, they should be making them then, so the
Yeah.
changes could be made before it goes to a public hearing.
I think the public hearing's a non-issue.
And are you comfortable with that being enough for the public meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, it meets
I
the
would think so.
requirements, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're providing all this information to the public anyways, because all the meetings are being recorded. So if
Mhm.
people are interested in something, they have the opportunity to check out what the meeting was about.
Are the
Do we
meetings going to
still-
go to in-person meetings soon, or are they going to continue as a Zoom meetings, or are they going to be a hybrid?
I think they're going to be a hybrid, Karen. There's bills in Albany supposedly to keep them that way forever.
Okay,
Oh, that's a good idea,
I
actually.
think so too. I do.
Yeah.
right. Well, and the chatter I've heard here at town hall is the same. Everybody feels like, yes, we would like the option to meet in person, but that nobody really wants to give up the remote option because we feel like we have gotten, I don't know, Gary, would you agree? I feel like we have gotten a little bit better participation in
Yeah, with
some
the
meetings
Zoom.
with
Yeah.
the option to join from home.
Mhm.
Yeah, because in person, the meetings that we may have 1 to 6 people attend them, and it's all for a certain item or something. That's why they attend. In a Zoom, depending on the topic, it's you get triple digits of people
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
list.
You sure you want that?
Very long meetings.
Along these lines, when's CIC going to go in person?
I think we could consider that sooner rather than later. I mean, we have the space. We've got the courtroom if we want to be spaced out more. And I have a feeling not every member would want to come in person. So I mean, it's not going to be all of us all at once, likely. Anyway,
Well, most of us are older and probably fully vaccinated anyway.
Yeah, true.
Right, right.
us staff are too. So
Mhm.
I mean, I haven't gotten like official direction on that from the powers that be. It's mostly kind of a little bit in person here and there. I mean, I've had some meetings with people here at town hall. We all have now in person. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see what's the official word. We've got a couple of our conference rooms in limbo right now. We're trying to figure out as we move back to in-person meetings. Gary can chime in on that. We've been trying to make some hybrid meeting rooms where it's set up so that everybody can be seen on the Zoom and heard more clearly than when they're all kind of far away from the computer, but still leave room for people to come. So the room we usually meet in keeps getting moved around, so I'm not sure if we could use that, but the courtroom's always available. It's just not always set up very well.
Yeah,
But
but it
yeah,
wouldn't
let
take
me
long. It wouldn't take long to get that set up for once you
no,
got the smart board
probably
in there and
not.
everything.
Especially with the courtroom. I think that
Yeah.
would be the easiest one that
Right.
has more space, especially because I don't know what's going to happen with that Oriana room, Gary. We keep moving it back and forth between
Yeah.
the
Well,
one set up and the other one.
as you well know, and the others, can be made aware of it. We had our last board meeting. There was 3 of the 5 of us that attended in person at town hall.
Hmm. How did that work? I heard it kind of was working and it kind of didn't work the
Yeah,
way
but
it was set up.
yeah, you had echoes from one of the microphones and things like that. So
Mhm.
it was far from ideal. It'd be nice to have it set up so that you didn't have to have an individual computer and an individual microphone to pick up, because we used to be able to do that in the courtroom. Before you only had the one microphone and things like that, basically for people to speak from.
So they had grievance day down in that room, Gary, and I watched the recording, and the people who were farther in the back or farther away from the computer were a little harder to hear, but you could hear everyone. And that's only with the one microphone
Yeah.
up front. I mean, we've got all the microphones that the town board uses.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a fussy thing to get out just for CIC, but I mean, we could. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to Doug and we'll see if there's an official, we'll just go back to it if we want to with the hybrid option, or do we still need to wait?
Surely there are some college interns who could come in. You know how I advocate for internships, and determine how to set up a hybrid meeting so that everybody can hear and everyone can participate and there is no echo. And I know what Gary said, that's a problem, the echoes. So, but I can't help but think there's some of these electronic engineers, computer engineers that look for internships and couldn't come in and figure it out.
I mean, the
Sure.
easiest answer probably is those microphones we use for town board and only one Zoom account running. The trouble with what happened in the town board meeting was everybody was in on their own Zoom, you know,
Yeah.
created the echoes, but
Mhm.
yeah, we'll have to get it perfected. Maybe this group can be the guinea pig.
Sure, we can do it.
All right, I'll see about it. Do you want me to see if we can try and shoot for it for our next meeting? Try it out.
Yes, yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, speaking of next meeting. Oh, it's already June. I need to cross out May.
Yeah.
The 15th. And we spoke about conservation subdivision this time, and I think last time we met, we were, forgive me, there's just too many meetings. When we decided what to talk about today, there was, it was form-based code, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah,
Sarah?
right. Yeah, form-based code 2 and 3, I thought.
Because their next meeting is this Thursday, right?
Yeah,
Economic Development
10:30.
Group. So after that meeting, we'll have kind of an update on where we are with form-based code, the first section, and getting into the next sections, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be good timing to talk about that next time. And we are going to have had another housing meeting by then, but we just spent a whole meeting on that. So I'd rather postpone more conversations on that until we've got more figured out. All right, does that make sense to everyone? We'll do form-based code, kind of get an update on all of that, because there's kind of a couple moving parts with that now as we finish up the first section. And we'll see if we can't try and be in person. And I'll send something out after, probably early next week, to give us, give the Economic Development Committee a chance to meet first, and then I'll see if whether there's any updated documents from Bergman to share with you before we talk.
And the Affordable Housing Committee meets at the end of this week too,
Yeah, Friday.
Friday.
Sarah, I'll be on vacation for the next kind of like 2 weeks here, so I won't be available for the affordable housing or some of the others that are coming up.
Okay.
I have to apologize. I don't have either the Thursday or Friday meetings on my calendar. What,
So Thursday is Economic Development Committee. They're going to meet with form-based or about form-based code. I don't
okay,
think
I'm
we've
not on
sent,
that. Okay, don't
I
worry.
don't think we've sent the invite out yet either.
Okay, what's Friday?
Friday is the Affordable Housing Group Project Team, whatever they're calling themselves. I think this is
What
really
time?
their
10 a.m.
Karen, do you remember?
10.
10, yeah.
And that is a Zoom as well? Must be, huh?
Yes. That one will probably stay a Zoom at least
Yeah.
for a while because there's people from so many different organizations joining.
Sarah, will you send an invitation out on that so we can connect,
Yes.
please?
Do you guys want to receive the invites for the Economic Development Committee as well?
Yes,
No.
please.
Nope.
I do.
I will send it
I think
to
I'm on the list.
CIC and you can ignore it if you don't want to come.
Okay, okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I think that's it for now. We got it in under an hour.
Good enough.
And
Good
I'm pretty
meeting.
sure Doug will be able to join us by the time our next meeting comes around. So I'll talk to him about the comp plan stuff too. Get his feelings on it.
Especially, so when will the comp plan go to the town board? Will it be this month's meeting or the July
So-
meeting?
What we had agreed on before
That'll-
is that in the June meeting, there'll
Yeah.
be a resolution
George,
that the town board
Can you
can
call me
set
in
the
like
public
5
hearing.
minutes and then Zoom meeting? Okay, yeah, bye.
Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, so they can set the public hearing if they want to, for the July meeting. So
Okay.
the actual public hearing and any presentation would be at the July meeting. And then usually the way we do it is there's a resolution that night that they can adopt it or postpone it if they feel they need to. But typically the night of the public hearing is when it's adopted.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's what we had agreed
Sarah,
before. So unless something changes with this whole comp plan team conversation,
Mhm.
unless something happens with that, I still think that is still going to be our schedule.
okay. Sarah, I just want to mention that Bergman presented to the ordinance committee twice
Yes.
at 2 of their meetings. So if you could maybe send the dates and CIC could, review
Oh, yeah.
those meetings.
Yeah. So I'll send a link to the YouTube channel and yeah, she's right. There's a couple meetings on there from Bergman. And actually the first one of the last two, the first one had a really good overview presentation by Kimberly.
Right,
That was about 15
right.
minutes, I
And
think. So if you only listen to the first 15 minutes, you'd get the presentation. But there was some good conversation after that too.
so after this Thursday's meeting, that will be the first presentation for the phase 2. So, you guys could check on that also.
Okay. All right, I'll send that too. So I'll send that stuff today,
Okay.
and then probably next Monday I'll send if there's any drafts or anything out of the meeting, I'll send that with our reminder for the following week's meeting.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Until next
Bye.
time. Bye.
Bye.